You do need to save this brass fitting that goes into here, or get a new one, but the airbag does not come with that. So this plate will go on like that. I'll put some paint on there, and this does fit. I know that. Anyway, it does fit. So this bolts onto here. The hardware comes with the airbag, new hardware to bolt the plate on, and then you need 4 screws to bolt this in place. I think the hardware comes for these bolts here. So 4 new airbags, and you're all set. The other thing that I did when I was back here was I did replace the radius rod bushings. So just like the front of the bus, is that right? Does the front have 4? Yeah, the front has 5, I believe. Anyway, the back of the bus has 4 radius rods. You got a lower one, pretty much goes straight front to back, and then you got an upper one that comes up and grabs onto the top of the differential. So that's going to keep any twisting load, keep this axle from rolling front or back while allowing it to travel up and down. The radius rod bushings and the design is pretty much exactly like the ones in the front, pretty straightforward. Assuming you don't run into bolts breaking off. Now, to get this lower radius rod off of here, you do have to remove this link. In order to remove this link, you will be cutting that off of there. This is the sway bar link. So these studs that go into the brackets are a tapered stud, kind of like a ball joint, and those things, it's tapered into this bracket, and it's also tapered into the end of the torsion arm. So you need to cut this off with a die grinder, what have you, and then you're going to need to heat those things red hot and knock them out of there, because those things are as good as welded in place. So you get rid of this rod, you buy this new, not expensive, easy to get. Once this is off, then this radius rod can be unbolted here. And then moving into the back of the bus, light in here. Pretty simple here on the lower radius rods. So you got your through bolts, so that means you don't have any issues with potentially breaking bolts, because those can all be replaced. So this guy's pretty easy. The ones that are not so easy and actually very difficult is the back end of the upper radius rods. This one here, which is in the old air conditioning compartment, which is long abandoned, are fairly accessible. You can get behind this between these bulkheads. This would be the front bulkhead, this would be the back bulkhead. The engine's behind this. So you can crawl underneath there. These are somewhat accessible. Kind of a pain. The other side is a major issue because the transmission lives in that space. I did it when I had the engine and transmission removed from the bus, which made things much easier, and it took a impossible job and made it only slightly miserable. But all the bolts did come out of there. New radius rod bushings in there, so that was another upgrade or replacement that worked out well. Again, you buy your new link, put that on there, and yeah, that was it. I obviously did the brakes. My brake drums were good. I ended up finding a truck place that would turn these brakes. It was difficult. Nobody really wanted to touch these brakes. When you take the brake drums in to be turned, make sure you bring a hub with you, because they need to, and these bolts that attach the drum to the hub, because they need to use the hub to spin the drum. So make sure you take one hub. Either one can be used for both of the brake drums. I had to replace every wheel stud. I think I had 2 that were snapped off, and the rest of them were all stretched. So something to check, kind of hard to see, but when you remove your lugs and you take a close look, you're going to look right in this section right here, and you're going to see threads that are, every thread is wider, and these were all stretched right in there. Every one of them was stretched. So I replaced every stud on both sides, which was a little bit of a chore. I obviously have to have the hub off of the vehicle. And yeah, that was it. But the spring brake addition is very nice. So now I have a parking brake and also safety. If you lose air catastrophically, you're not going to lose brakes. Your brakes will lock up and you'll at least be stopped. One other thing I wanted to mention, I am also changing the leveling valves, just replacing them. These are factory. So this is what controls air going to this, which goes into the top of the airbag, and this one here goes into the top of this airbag, and there's this exact same valve on the other side of the bus. So as this here, there's a link that connects from here to here. As your axle goes up and down, your valve levels up and down. I'll show you how this goes here. Down and up. Okay, so one thing to that I want to mention, if you are checking your valves, either if you have a problem or you think you might want to replace those valves are not instantaneous. This right here is the breather. So you basically just have an in and an out. The out goes to the airbags, and the in is your supply. And then there's an exhaust. So if you're checking those by hand, one thing to remember is that the valves do not work instantaneously like a regular petcock valve or 90-degree valve where you can turn it and immediately you hear air coming out of there. That's not the case with these. There is a kind of like a shock absorber inside of these. It's like this jelly, some kind of jelly material. And what that does is it delays the operation of the valve. And the reason that it does that is so that as you're going down the road and this is going up and down with bumps, the valve is not constantly and instantaneously filling and releasing air for every bump. There's a delay. And so if you go to say, well, I need to test my valve, and you move this lever down or up and nothing happens, and you're like, oh, well, the valve's broken, it's clogged, or there's a problem. Not necessarily. You have to hold it and count to maybe 3 seconds or something like that, and then it will pass air. Also, it's a very small amount of air, as you know. That's why your airbags fill so slowly. But anyway, just something to keep in mind if you are checking your air valves. They do not work instantaneously. They're not designed to work instantaneously. The valves I had were old, and I just didn't want to have any issues with that. And then you buy the replacement link, the original link, which bolts into this hole here, and then there's a hole right here, and then you can set your level. And then the last thing that I'll do is the bump stops, which right now I have just a piece of square tubing holding the axle in place, and obviously put new shock absorbers on. And that will pretty much service the entire rear axle bay. Everything should be set to go and last my lifetime. So I hope this was informative. I actually didn't do any work, which is kind of typical, but just talking to you about how the job is done and just a few things to look out for, and also everything I did, I will say, was worth it. There's nothing that I said when I was done, oh boy, I shouldn't have, that was a can of worms that I shouldn't have opened. It's all pretty intuitive, all straightforward tools, kind of big tools, but everything goes, per the book, and the parts really are not that expensive, relatively speaking. And again, if you do a job like this, you're probably only going to do it once in your lifetime. So it's you do it once, you do it right, and then enjoy the bussing. So hope that helped out a couple people. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer them, and good luck with your project.